Hi guys, I'm on tonight. It's awful late for me again. I've actually had to train someone this week. Ooh, look at my hair. So it's been a little nerve-wracking. Not that I actually like to teach people, but when that happens and I have to train somebody in my space, it's hard for me not to just take over. This stuff I love to teach people, but the stuff that I do at work is harder because I just have my own system. I think part of that is because of my ADD, and I have to do everything just so at work. You can see my home is not real organized and stuff. So part of the reason I'm successful at work is because when I go into work, every single detail of work is very organized. And everything I do in exact succession. And I don't ever miss anything. And that's why, like, I have a 98% accuracy in my paperwork. And because everything I do is very... So when somebody else comes in, and they should be able to do their own thing, but not while it's my office and I'm there. So I may be a little OCD at work. Anyways, I did, again, I wanted to try to go outside and do the circle. And I'm having a hard time with the weather, and I had to be at the main office today, and so I didn't get home until late. I'm really, really hoping by tomorrow, which I think it's not going to be raining, that I am getting out at a decent time tomorrow, that I can do my the circle video, so that I can set up a ritual, because I didn't want to talk about Mabon until I could show some of the circle and the ritual, the idea, principles, ideas and stuff behind ritual. But Mabon is coming very shortly. It's the 21st this year. So we really only have, you know, a week and a couple days now. So I figured, as long as I can't do the adult part of Mabon, I would do a couple of stories that I'm going to put onto my children's books series. I did start, there's a playlist in my playlists here that is reading Pagan children's books. And I don't know about you, but even as an adult, I love to read the kids' books. And they're, especially when they're pagan oriented, that means that they have to do with nature and the changing of the wheel, turning of the wheel, and I always find them really comforting. And I don't know, I still could use some comfort this week. I've been back and forth on if I want to talk about the whole Simon and Shane situation again. I'm trying to put that kind of stuff behind me, but I do want to say one thing else about it, and then hopefully everyone can feel like we have healed and moved on and know that everybody's okay. And that is that it is so hard when we do these videos and we're so close as a community with so many people that we feel like we know each other. And so it's hard when someone shows us a different side that we didn't see on the videos before. And that goes for both parties involved. But I was talking to someone who was still having a hard time with it. And I want to tell the story that I told to her, because I think it's important to keep in mind. I have been married now for 26 years. 27 years. Married for 26 years. We've been together for 27 years, I think. I'm terrible. A long time. And something that I learned very early on is, I will tell you that my husband and I are both very passionate people. And because we're passionate people, we're passionate about what we believe in. And we can fight. We can fight loudly and scream at each other sometimes, and things have been thrown, and you know, I'm not going to say there was violence involved, although I hit him a couple times probably. Not, you know, out of frustration, not out of I'm trying to kill you or anything. But it, you know, we're passionate people, and I have always said I don't apologize for being passionate. That doesn't mean that I don't need to control my anger more. I've talked about that before. I know I need to do that. But one of the things I learned fairly early on is that I would, and if any of you are married, you will know that when you get married, you kind of, not that you lose your friends, but you kind of pull away a little bit because you're forming your own unit. So I did not have, and I got married very young, which for my generation was a little different. Most people didn't get married in my generation. My graduating class did not get married till they were like in their 30s, most of them. And I was 18. So I would talk to my mother a lot. So in the very beginning, I would tell my mother about our fights. When I was frustrated and I felt like I needed to get it out, and I would talk to my mother. And I learned pretty early on that that was a bad idea. Because my mother, A, wasn't in love with my husband. B, was not there for the fights to see what was going on. She would just hear about the awful things when I was upset and angry and frustrated and everything. And C, she wasn't there for the makeup part. So while Peter and I would sit down and have these huge long discussions and work things out, she did not see that part, and she did not forgive like I did. So it became a problem because she really did not like my husband. And it probably took a good 10 years of our marriage before she's still not in love with my husband, but they're okay. And I think a lot of that was because it took a long time for me to learn I can't go to my mother with stories of our terrible fights because she loves me. And she doesn't get to see the after stuff, the stuff where we made up, the stuff where we talked about what we did wrong, we both apologized, all that stuff. She didn't get to see that part. And so I had moved on a long time ago, and for years she was kind of holding on to some of these terrible fights that we had had in the beginning, because, you know, why shouldn't she? She didn't get to see the good part of it. What she saw was, or not even saw, but heard from her daughter who she loves, was this terrible bad part. So keep that in mind when you are thinking of this, you know, situation that we all saw a tiny piece of, is that we don't get to see the rest of it. The making up part and the sitting down and talking part. And I think Simon and Shane are both adults. They're both big boys. And they're both intelligent people. And they're both loving people. And, you know, Simon, his job is to work in like conflict management kind of situations. And so our job is to support them in however they want us to support them. And I trust, because I know Simon as much as I know him, and again, through YouTube, that Simon knows what he's doing. And I trust that Shane genuinely felt bad about what happened. I trust that Simon genuinely felt bad about what happened, and they worked out whatever they needed to work out and came on here and told us all, we're good. It's okay. So as hard as that may be for some of you to, and some of us, to grasp that, it has to be okay, because we weren't there. So there's, you know, again, I just have to trust in the universe's eternal knowledge that most people are mostly good. That most people are not bad people. That doesn't mean it never happens. But I'm not going to walk through life with fear and hate and all that stuff in my heart. I don't want to live like that. I'm hanging on to that, and they're fine with it. Nah, let it go. They've let it go. It's time for everybody else to let it go too. So that's my 2 cents. Sorry to bring it up again, but we're done. Now that it's 10 minutes in, I'm terrible. Okay, so the story I'm going to read, because I need a story. I need a story time this week. We read Rupert's Tales, which is the little bunny who goes through all the pagan Sabbats. The Wheel of the Year. So we're on the last one of this book, which is Mabon. So this is in a week and a half. And so I'm going to read Rupert, Mrs. Mabon. See the little bunnies? So if y'all have kids around, you can show them this video and teach them about Mabon. And if not, you can pay attention, because as an adult, I love kids' books. Rupert the Rabbit. Can you see? Terrible glare, isn't there? Rupert the Rabbit was in a great big hurry. If he wanted to make it in time, he'd really have to scurry. So down the path he ran, through the grass and through the trees, stretching out his long legs, running as fast as the breeze. He knew it was time for the people to come again, to gather here from all the many places they'd been. They came to celebrate in a very special place, in a meadow or clearing or kind of round space. Here in the forest, out in the open air, they could dance, drum, and pray without a single care. Lifting their voices together in song, chant, or praise, they called on God and Goddess using the energy they raised. Rupert looked forward to the times when the people would come, especially when they played for hours on their many lively drums. See little Rupert? He's so cute. See the flowers. As Rupert ran through the woods, he had these things on his mind, not paying attention to what was in front of him or what was behind. He only knew he had to hurry or he would soon be late. He'd miss the celebration, and then he'd have a long time to wait. The people only came to celebrate together on certain special days, so he hurried even faster, eager to be on his way. That's when it happened, even though it shouldn't have. And if Rupert would have been more careful, it wouldn't have. Melvin the mouse was in the middle of the path, right in the way. When Rupert saw him, it was much too late to stop or sway. Here's the little mouse. And so did Melvin go flying, without even using any wings, landing in a patch of yellow daisies of all things. Rupert, too, had gone flying through the air, tumbling and rolling out of control and feeling a little scared. "Are you hurt?" he heard Melvin ask from the bushes on his right. "You know, you really gave me a terrible fright." "I'm sorry, my friend, really I am," Rupert replied, rubbing his head. "I should have been watching out for what was ahead." "Why are you in such a hurry?" Melvin asked, coming into view. He came out from behind the bush, trailing a daisy petal or two. "Today is a festival for the people who come to visit us here. If I don't really hurry, I'll miss the festivities, I fear." "Ah, yes," said Melvin, shaking his head sadly in dismay. "And just what do you think you're doing, carrying on that way? People are people, and not like you and me. Any one of them could hurt you, don't you see?" He's so cute with his little acorn, Melvin. While Melvin was talking, he started walking around, picking up the things he'd dropped scattered on the ground. Rupert was taken aback by Melvin's strange words. The thought that any of the people he'd seen would hurt him seemed absurd. He thought about telling Melvin of the things he'd seen and done, of all he'd learned about the seasons and of the moon and the sun, of how he'd even met the Lord and Lady a time or two. But Rupert wasn't sure Melvin would believe any of it was true. Besides, he really didn't have any time to waste. If he was going to watch the people in their circle, he'd have to make haste. It's so cute. That's when he saw Melvin had a basket he'd never seen before. In it, Melvin had piled acorns, pine cones, sweetgrass, and more. Rupert couldn't help himself. Despite the fact he was running behind, he had to know what the mouse was doing with goodies of all kinds. But Melvin squeaked for help just as Rupert opened his mouth to ask, trying to carry an apple even though he was way too small for the task. It was a big red apple, much too large for Melvin to take in stride. And oh, it looked like it was delicious and all juicy inside. "Where are you going with all of that?" Rupert asked his small friend, taking the fruit from Melvin carefully by its long stem. "I thought you were in a hurry," Melvin said, lifting his chin. "If you won't listen to the whole story, then I'm not even going to begin." Rupert paused for a moment because he knew Melvin very well. This was one of those times his friend was being stubborn, he could tell. Sometimes the mouse got bossy, and he thought himself very wise. But then again, Rupert knew Melvin had traveled very far and very wide. The mouse liked to collect stories as he went in search of his treasure, gathering food, odds and ends, legends, yarns, and tales of every measure. If he stayed to listen, then he could help Melvin carry his things. He didn't want to do it, but being careless has a price that it brings. Rupert sighed to himself, knowing he was already too late, and he knew his help was something his friend would appreciate. "I'll be glad to stay to hear all you have to say," Rupert finally said, even though he felt sad for not going to the people's celebration instead. See the barn? "Good," said Melvin, "because I really do need your help with my basket. It's too big for me to carry, but I was a little embarrassed to ask it." As he picked up an onion, Melvin began, "Today is the autumn equinox, you see, when the sun and moon both share the skies equally." "Oh, I see," Rupert frowned. His voice sounded sad, as it seemed to quiver. Remembering that before long it would be very cold, he even felt himself shiver. He'd forgotten a fairy had once warned him that the sun would start to fade, and he'd soon be looking for warm shelter instead of for cool shade. Melvin continued to explain, "And so it's time for our second harvest of the season. After all, Mabon follows Lammas, so the timing only stands to reason." "Mabon?" asked Rupert, confused as he'd ever been, but distracted by the knowledge that the summer would be coming to an end. "Well," Melvin smiled, giving a little shrug, "that's the name the people call it by. Those of us who are animals only know this is when the year starts to die." "The year starts to die?" Rupert asked, feeling alarmed. "But what does that mean?" Rupert didn't understand yet how the seasons passed. That much easily could be seen. Oh, see the snow? What a beautiful scene. It's gorgeous. "The weather starts to cool, and many plants turn to brown from green. It's not the beginning of the year or its end, but somewhere in between. People use this day to welcome the beginning of the end of the year, and to praise the Lord and Lady for all the blessings they hold dear." "People do these things?" Rupert asked, with a suspicious gleam in his eyes. "But I thought you said being near people wasn't very wise." "Oh, you caught me," the mouse said with a shy grin. "It's true. But if you hadn't run into me, I wouldn't have had any help from you. You weren't the only one who was late and running behind. I should have already had all of this stored with my shelves neatly lined. Instead of taking the day to relax and enjoy all the bounty you see here, I waited too long and ended up getting trampled on from the rear." Rupert laughed along with his small friend, still sorry he missed the people's ritual, but glad he was helping in the end. "But I was telling you a story, and I'm not quite done," Melvin told him, picking up acorns and putting them in the basket one by one. "As you may have guessed from what you've learned from before, there's more than one way to celebrate, many more. Some call this Sabbath the Weaver's Festival, when they braid bright cords, casting spells to add strength and unity and setting protective wards. And many who grow crops all year long leave a corner of each field, a little bit of each thing's grown, a little of what each crop yields. People do these things to give thanks for their blessings and foodstuffs, believing God and Goddess will always provide more than enough." Little Melvin. There he is with the basket. Melvin saw Rupert twitch and understood what he was thinking, so he gave his long-legged friend a smile while he closed one eye winking. Yes, the end of the year means that it will soon be cold, and it's true that the sweetgrass will be all withered and old. But Rupert, Melvin scolded, with all we have here, we've got it made. The little mouse pointed at the overflowing basket where his own harvest laid. And death, my dear friend, is truly nothing to fear, whether it be your own or the turning of the wheel of the year. Birth, death, and rebirth are all part of the same mystery of life. No matter the weather, from time to time we all face sadness and strife. And that is the message of Mabon, my friend, said Melvin, making a little bow, to celebrate what we have right here and right now. And balance, said Rupert, it seems to me as important, is it not? Work and play, life and death, night and day, and even cold and hot. Now you've got it, Melvin said with a grin, so let's get all this put away so our own celebration can begin. So off they went, the two furry friends, not missing Mabon after all, in the end. The end. And that marks the end of this book, which we won't pick up again until Beltane next year, till May. And so we'll have the next book. There's another book for the other half of the year. And then we actually had one more book that I will read probably tonight and then upload it tomorrow, though, since 2 children's books is a little much. And I wanted to pull an oracle card for the night, since I have not been able to pull a card all night for myself at all. All day, all night. It was just one of those days. Sometimes, you get up and it's run, run, run. So I pulled the Native Spirit Oracle deck by Denise Lynn. And I figured we'd pull a card for the night. And then we'll be done. And then tomorrow I have faith that the Lord and Lady will make the weather okay. Also, while I'm shuffling here, if you're in the path of the hurricane, Florence is her name, I believe. Make sure that you are safe. Be safe, be safe, be safe. If you still have time, get out. And if not, hunker down and get extra batteries and sandbag your entranceways and all that good stuff. Please be safe. I will be lighting a candle probably tomorrow night, because it sounds like it's going to hit landfall tomorrow night, or maybe a little bit before if it starts getting really bad tomorrow. Okay, look at that. The Circle of Life. How very, very appropriate. Let me get the book out here. Oh. And I opened right to it. No synchronicities there at all. The Circle of Life. All things are possible. Stand in your center and be open. The 4 winds are bringing your dreams to fruition. Embrace and accept where you are in the great circle of life. Bounty and abundance are flowing to you. If you've had relationship or financial challenges, things are about to change. Your native spirit wants you to know the circle of life, called the medicine wheel in Native American traditions, symbolizes a cosmology that honors all the circles of life. Those in Western cultures tend to see life as linear. However, those in indigenous cultures see all life as a circle. When this card chooses you, it's time to honor and cherish all aspects of the great circle. All parts of the journey have beauty and grace. There's beauty in the rising sun, just as there is in the setting sun. To only revel in the rising sun and demean times of endings depletes your energy. Choose what is, and you become master of the universe, or at least of your own personal universe. Beautiful. I think that's a very appropriate ending tonight. So I hope everybody is having a great week. Tomorrow, I have faith, will be seeing the next installment of the Beginner Witch series, which will be about how to cast a circle and a little bit about the beginnings of a ritual and how to kind of create a ritual. I was thinking about it for several days now, and we're going to do just solitary rituals to start out with. If anybody wants to do or wants me to upload videos about coven work or anything like that, let me know. But I think for the most part, most of us here in the YouTube community are solitary workers. And if you have a coven, then your coven will be, you know, kind of directing what kind of path work you're going to be doing. But I will do it if somebody has a request for that, or, you know, wants to start their own coven. Sometimes you have a group of friends that are interested in it and you want to start that. I have some books and stuff that are really good for when you're first starting out, that kind of stuff. So let me know, and tomorrow is another day. I hope everybody's having a great week. Blessings.